Hey, good morning, everybody. It is Ryan and
Grant.
For another episode of Grant Teach Me Something.
What's up, y'all?
I think this is episode 26. That means we've done 25 of these before this episode, and I don't know why every week that's surprising to me, but it is.
Well, you know what? Like, literally, I was going through the classes.
Literally?
I was going through the classes, and I was like, I totally don't remember doing that class. It's been that long that like I'm forgetting some of the classes that we've done.
So therefore, what I just want to tell people is, if you're going to be doing these, what am I talking? I don't know what I'm talking about. Anyway, what are we talking about this week, Mr. Moore? Shit.
Jeez, man, you got some working on to do this.
Flustered.
So,
your name is Grant. My name is Ryan.
Grant.
This is Grant Teach Me Something.
Yes.
And we're going to be talking about second liens, right?
We're going to be talking about second liens, and we're also going to be talking about. Sorry, I thought I could do something here and I can't. We're also going to be talking about like really tying a lot of this stuff together. So I was looking back through our episodes, right, and looking at some of the things that we've done before, and how can we tie together our deal analysis and paying too much for houses and backing into the deal, that kind of stuff. So what we're going to do today is I'm going to try to again, tie it all together, kind of make this nice coherent package of some of the things that you guys have learned in previous episodes. How can we apply that into a single deal to say, hey, these thought processes are going to help me make an offer that other people cannot match, right? So that's what we'll be talking about. We'll be talking about starting from the deal analysis stage to figuring out what can you pay for a house, and then when you figure out what you can pay for that house, how can we structure that in a creative way that means that you don't necessarily have to have private money or capital in your back pocket or anything by using those second liens.
So metaphorically, this is the bow? Because like if all of it is
the
wrapped
bow. I'm
together,
thinking like the bow. And
like we're wrapping it together and this is the bow on top? And
yes, this is the metaphorical bow.
Metaphorical bow.
So the first thing that we'll start out with is the deal analysis side of things, right? So one of the ways that we need to look at deals is we want to do what's called backing into the deal, okay? We want to back into that deal. And what I mean is that when you're acquiring a property, when you're looking to acquire a property, you want to start from your exit plan and then work your way back from there. So when you're starting from your exit, that means that you are going to say, look, I want to acquire this property and then I'm going to rent it, or I'm going to whatever, owner finance it, or whatever that might be. And so kind of have a plan as to what you guys are wanting to do there. And then, I think all scattered. I broke everything here. I'm on Propelio. I'm trying to see what you guys want. Anyway.
Do you want me to fix it for you? Just do this.
Can you help me?
Whatever. Just keep talking.
Anyway, okay, so we're going to go with our exit strategy first. So for today's example, I'm going to use seller financing as our exit. Now, you don't have to use seller financing as your exit. One of the brilliant things about this whole deal, if you watched last week's episode, is you can understand that you can buy with seller financing and then sell with seller financing, or rent, or do whatever you want after that point. But the cool thing about this is one of the ways that we're going to analyze the deal, thank you so much. One of the ways that we're going to analyze this deal to make sure it works for us is we're going to be basing everything off of our payment. What is the payment that we can get in on this property? Subtle plug, name of my company is CreativeCashFlow. I'm all about cash flow. I want long-term gains, right?
Right.
That's how you're going to make the most money. And cash flow is based off of payments. So we're going to look at payments more than anything else. This is why we're able to pay too much for properties, is because if we're paying 85, 90, 95% for a deal, but we're cash flowing $500 or $600 a month, okay, right? That's doable. That's something that's worth looking into. So we're going to look at our exit first. Now, when I say payment, I'm talking about what would this house rent for? So if you're a landlord, if that's where you want to stick, then just end there. If you're an owner financer, then continue on down that path. But what we've got to do is we've got to look at our end goal and back in from there. Take out all the expenses that we know are going to occur, that we can't have any control over, and then decide what we have left over to acquire the house. And then from there is where we're going to decide how we can pay too much from a house. But I want to take this first chunk first, all right? We following?
Yes and no. Maybe my brain's not big enough to be able to process fixing your computer and listening at the same time. But where does the second lien and all that, because I know the title of this video, the main course is, using the second liens
To pay too much.
To pay too
Right.
much. So like that's all pretty what you just said. And I'm like, ooh, that's cool and all. But what does that necessarily have to do with the seconds?
So once we finish up backing into our deal and we're left with how much money we can pay on a monthly basis, that money is going to be what we use to buy the house. And within that dollar range that we are given, we will either have to pay a lender, or we can maybe buy a house for sub 2 for this much and then give the seller a second lien for the rest of it.
Okay.
But what we are able to do is dictated by our monthly payment. And so we've got to fit our liens, first or second, within that dollar amount. So chunk 1 of this episode is going to be how do we find that dollar amount that tells us what we're allowed to pay for first and second liens. And then chunk 2 of this episode will be, okay, now let's break it out and say, how are we going to split this out into second liens?
And I know, like, one of my jobs here at Propelio, when we have people like Grant in here, is to ask the stupid questions. That way nobody else will. And I think we've covered it significantly enough, what liens are, first, second. But real quick, can I get an 8-second breakdown
Absolutely.
of a second lien?
Yeah, the 8-second breakdown of a lien is just debt on a property. Lien says that when the property sells and money comes in from it, whoever the debt is owed to is going to get paid before the seller of that property. So lien position is determined solely and entirely by the date and time in which that lien was filed with the county. So you could have a lien that's filed January 1 for $14 and a lien that's filed February 1st for $980,000. And the thing with lien position is whoever files first is more important. So if this $14 lien forecloses, that $980,000 second lien gets completely wiped out, never gets a cent.
So it's the date, not the amount.
It's the date, not the amount.
Cool.
Lien position, when I say first, second, third, is solely determined by who has filed when. So if January 1st one is filed, that's first. February 1st one is filed, that's second. March, that's third.
And I will say, in the real estate world, investors, with the wholesaling, with the flipping, with the hard money lenders, with the sub 2s, whatever strategy you're doing, typically it's your first lien, one lien all day long. Your hard money lender, your private capital, your uncle, your this, your that. You've got the one lien. You refi with a big old bank, you get the one lien, the first lien position. So one thing about being creative is adding the seconds, the thirds, the fourths. Like, I ran through a scenario on the board here, a week ago, just kind of very roughly explaining how you could take a property, break it down, and here's the first lien, and then break it second and third lien, and they're like, what? And the head blew up.
Right.
So again, that's just a long-winded way of saying, in real estate investing, you got to get creative. You can expand, you could do whatever the hell you want, as long as you consult your attorneys and your legal advice and your CPAs.
Absolutely. Which we are not.
Which we're not. That's why I brought it up. But also, just you could do anything you can creatively imagine.
So we've got audio problems. They're not able to hear us.
Audio is in and out, garbled. I don't know what to do.
Is it bad enough that you guys can't hear us? If I could get a response from that, and maybe if we don't get a response, that'll be our answer. But we need to know, because this is going to be really packed full of meat today. This is going to be one of those really meaty episodes, so we want to make sure that you guys can hear us. So let's see here. Let's.
How about you go solo?
Okay. Okay. So I'm getting a no. We can't understand. Well, they said they can't hear us at all. So I'm just.
We can't fix it if you can't.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Test. All right, so we are testing this. We're going to go solo for a minute, and I am dancing for you guys as we've got this technical difficulty that we're working through. Thank you for letting us know that this is messed up, because we do need to make sure that we're getting this fixed. So let us know when the audio is clear for you, and we will go from there. Oh, it's good now. Carla says it's good now. Okay. And Jeremy says it's good now. Wow, that was a quick fix. Praise, hallelujah. I like good audio. Good audio. All right, cool. Sounds good so far. So we'll just, guys, keep an eye on that for us. Keep an ear out on that for us. And just let us know if something messes up again, and we'll get that fixed. What I was saying earlier is this is a very meat-packed episode. This is going to be something that we really want to make sure that you guys are able to stick with, because I'm tying together episodes that we've done in the past, and we're going to kind of take a deal from start to finish, a hypothetical deal, to show you what it's going to look like to back into a deal to, and I'm just going to do a quick 45-second review of what we talked about at the beginning of this, since our audio was messed up. Because we want to look at, if we're going to buy a house for too much money, we need to determine what our cash flow on that property is going to be, and that's how we're going to be allowed to do this. So what we're going to do is we're going to start from our exit, which in the example I will use today, I'm going to say owner financing, but understand I'm using a payment that is equivalent to a rent rate. So if you're a landlord, just understand that same payment would be the rent rate. So either way, rent or owner finance, we're going to have a payment. We're going to back out all of the expenses, all of our cash flow, all of that kind of stuff. And what we're left with is going to be the money that we can afford to use to pay for that house, okay? And that little chunk right there, then we will split out to say, all right, this is the debt that we can afford on the property. How much of that can we allot to a second lien to our seller, or how much allotment goes to our lender or the underlying bank or whatever there. So our first chunk here is going to be backing into the deal, which is somewhat, when you look back at, I think it was like episode 15 or 17, somewhere in there, we did a deal analysis. We did a 2-part deal analysis, and I was giving you some rules of thumb. This is going to be more of a practical deal analysis of, hey, we're looking at our cash flow from a cash flow standpoint. We are going to employ those deal analysis principles that I told you before. We want those in the back of our mind as well. But let's take that from the beginning. All right, so we've chosen a wonderful day of technical difficulties to start.
Honestly, I don't think it was technical difficulty. I think we just had a laggy moment on the internet.
Oh, okay.
Because
that makes
everything
sense.
was fine. It was just the laggy. But anyway.
Okay, cool.
We've got a new toy, and Daniel's going to be super happy or super frustrated if it doesn't work.
But it should work. We've got something cool here. So what we're going to do is we're going to, instead of going to the whiteboard, we think that you guys will be able to see this a little bit more easily, and we're going to kind of draft things out for you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say that we have a house that would rent for, and I'm going to use, I'll use black here. That would rent for $10.50 a month.
Your handwriting's so
My
bad.
handwriting's so bad. Do you want to be the handwriter? You can be the
doesn't
handwriter. Okay, so this is going to be a $10.50 a month income. After we see that, we need to back out expenses that we know that are going to happen, like taxes. Okay? On a monthly basis, taxes are going to have to come out. On a monthly basis, insurance is going to have to come out. Okay? On a monthly basis, we need to account for the cash flow that we want to see from this property. And then what we are left with after that is going to be the money that we get to play with. So we're going to back all of that stuff out, and then what we are left with is our play. Now,
and when you say play, you mean you're referring to play in the sense of what you can do with this deal. Not so necessarily like, hey, let's go get a Lambo, let's go
Correct.
Go to Disney World, let's go party it up.
Correct.
That's what you could do with the deal itself.
Absolutely. So this right here, I put a little note. Our play, when I refer to play, I'm talking about the money that we have to play with for debt. All right? Because if you notice, one of the things that I put in here as a factor is something that we need to know and that we need to have is our cash flow. So this is going to be one of the decisions that you guys need to make when you're doing these deals, is you need to understand in your own portfolio, what is your minimum cash flow per property going to be? Mm-hmm. Now, my rule of thumb, if you look back to that episode like I was talking about with our rule of thumbs and deal analysis, my rule of thumb says that I want to get a minimum of $150 net cash flow per door.
And I think now is a good time to say is like $150, that's not much money.
And the reason why I take that as a minimum is when we're doing owner financing, this is one of the reasons I love owner financing so much, is that, like with a landlord, $150 a month, you're losing tons of money. If you were only getting $150 a month, you're going to be losing your butt. And when I say net, the reason why I specified net is that if you're a landlord, right? If you're watching this video as a, look, I don't want to do owner financing, A, you're wrong. B, I'm joking, you're not wrong. Watch last week's episode. B, if I'm saying a net of 150, I'm going to assume that you have done your due diligence and you have figured out all of your capital expenditures and you have gone through all of the efforts, and you might have a gross cash flow of $800 a month. But after all is said and done, your net is 150 consistent, right? Like that would be a minimum need. When we're doing owner financing, the cool thing about owner financing is that our gross income is our net income.
Right.
As an owner financer, I might sell Ryan a property. He's going to give me a $10,000 or a 10% down payment on that property, and then he's going to pay me on a monthly basis his mortgage. I am the mortgage company. So my joke that I always make, that those of you who watch me consistently are going to get tired of hearing, is if you have a mortgage on your property, when was the last time that you called that mortgage company and told them that your toilet was leaking? Or that some repair needed to occur? You're not going to do it. The mortgage company doesn't care. We are the mortgage company. We don't care. So it's okay for me to accept $150 net cash flow because I'm literally doing nothing on that property ever. It's just money coming in.
And you know, and as for all of us who can't do math, if you do one house a month, say you have a full-time job and you're doing the weekend warrior route of getting into this business where you're just working on the weekends, working on in the evenings, and you do one house a month. By the end of the year, you will have $1,800 cash flow every single month because you're getting one house every single month.
Right.
$1,800. So there is that
powerful.
Yeah, there's that compounding effect there to where, hey, you do another 12 houses the next year, now you have 3,600.
Absolutely.
And then depending on where you are in your life and what you need to survive every month, well, maybe after 2 years you have 3,600, and not to get the rah life coach, but you have your 3,600. If that's enough to live on, which maybe it is, I don't say retire. Quit your job, use that 3,600 to live on, and go full time instead of doing one house a month. Now maybe you're doing 2 to 3 to 5.
And guys, one house a month is totally achievable. I mean, I've had down years where I'm like, dude, I freaking suck at real estate. Why? And I still bought 20, 25 houses in those years, right? Like that's 12 houses is totally doable. And I should also point out that my average cash flow on these owner finance properties is about $350. So, you know, 150 is my minimum, but my average is more like 350. I got a lot of properties that are cash flowing $500, $600. Another thing about this minimum cash flow thing, and you again referencing that last episode, like right now is a perfect example of that. So we're in a position right now where Shannon's work is you know, picking up. She gets to work from home 100% of the time, and so she typically watches the baby. And I'm in a very busy season of work here. We got a lot of stuff going on at Creative Cash Flow and with my investing and all that kind of stuff. So we're going to hire a nanny to help us out for the rest of the year, or actually for, you know, another year. And so I'm in a position right now where I'm going to sell a package of 5 notes. It's going to hurt my cash flow by about $500 because those notes were, or it's I guess $550. Those notes were at or below my minimum cash flow of $150, but I'm going to net about $120,000 from that note sale. Which means that I broke my rule of thumb of having $150 cash flow, but I broke it because I had a lot of equity in those deals. They were a nice little piggy bank. So what I'm doing is I'm selling those deals. We're going to hire a nanny for a year. I'm going to pay my cars off, and we're going to have some cash left over to have some fun with. You know what I mean? So always understand, hey, I'm talking about $150 cash flow, but that's a rule of thumb. And you can break it for whatever reason, but you've got to have a reason. I tell all of my students, you can do anything you want in this business, anything at all, as long as you can give me a reason why. And my reason on those was having a little bit of extra equity in there. So let's go back to the screen here. We've got a $1050 a month income, and you know, I'm gonna put income here. And what we've done is we're backing out our taxes, we're backing out our insurance, we're backing out our cash flow, and I'm gonna circle this cash flow one for us for a moment because we're gonna talk about that here in just a second. And then we arrive at our play. That play is the debt that we get to use on this property. Now this debt right here is going to be where we're spending the second half of our episode. But let's look at this right now. So our taxes, if we're selling a house, if we've got a house that rents for $1050, I'm just going to throw some random numbers out there. And I'm going to, let's go to a new page here. And I'm going to say we have $1050 a month coming in. So we're going to use that in green, okay? So $1050 a month of income. Now, backing out from there, we're going to take out our taxes. And so I'm going to say that on a $100,000 house, we might have $150 a month in taxes. Now, this is just a complete and total number out of the air, just so that we've got an example. But I'm going to back that out as taxes. And then I'm going to back out our insurance, which I'm going to also say is going to be like $115. Okay, I'm just throwing numbers out there. Now, when I am backing out insurance costs, again, we're looking at this from a standpoint of, hey, we're going to acquire a property, therefore we're analyzing it by looking at what's happening at the end. So hypothetically, in this scenario that we're running right now, I am on the phone or at a seller appointment deciding if I'm going to buy this house, and this is what we're doing, okay? Now, when I find that insurance number is going to be the insurance that our exit is going to use, okay? So we're not going to use the insurance policy that our current seller is paying for. What we're going to do is we're going to look at what insurance would be when we sell that property or when we rent that property. It's very important that we think about that in these ways because, and similarly with taxes, we need to understand, like taxes, if we use our seller's tax rate, well, I'll get to that in a second. Let me make a note to myself about that. So, okay. So on our insurance, we want to look at the insurance that our end buyer, if we're going to owner finance this, what would their insurance cost? Because when we owner finance this to an end buyer for our exit, their payment needs to be the same as what the rent would be for that property.
That seems like it'd be kind of hard, not hard, but just a mental shift, because as an investor, I'm trying to get the cheapest insurance that covers my butt.
Totally.
And if I'm Mitch Steven, I'm not using insurance at all, just because he deals in volume.
Yeah.
So it's just.
I don't know if that's. Are you sure? Are you sure about that?
No.
Okay. Let's not put words into Mitch's mouth. I like just in case, because I think that he.
Maybe I misheard.
Maybe. Anyway, moving on.
But I'm just saying, it's like the point I'm trying to make is with insurance, it's like. Whereas a typical homeowner may be spending $1 million as an investor, we're going to try to get the same policy for like $120.
Totally. And so what we're doing here when we're analyzing this deal from our end point is we've got to understand that for this property to be marketable to somebody to buy it from us, because at the end of the day, that's where we make our money, right, is when somebody buys it from us. So we have to make this marketable for that person, no differently than when you're doing a fix and flip and you know that you've got, you have to put in the granite and you have to put in the hardwoods in this neighborhood for it to be marketable. In owner financing and rentals, for it to be marketable, that payment has to be comparable, right? Mm-hmm. So, and I'm just to overly explain this, I'm kind of sweeping by a certain point here in that I just want to draw out to the forefront that when we are doing payments for our owner-financed buyers, their PITI payment and servicing and all that kind of stuff should add up to be the same as the rent would be for that property. When you're dealing with houses in the payment level of $2,000 and below a month, you can typically push that payment by $50 to maybe $75 a month. If they're going to be a homeowner, they're willing to pay about $50 to $75 a month more than if they were renting that property. But if you pass over that level, it becomes much harder to market that property and much harder to find a buyer, okay? So for this example, we're going to play it conservative. We're going to use the strict rent rate, the same as it would rent for as the sale, and fit everything into that. That way, if we can charge $50 or $75 more, then it's gravy and our cash flow goes up by that much. But we never want to be aggressive when we're analyzing a deal up front and say, well, it would rent for $1,050, so I'm going to run my numbers at $1,100 because I can find a buyer at $1,100. Because what if you can't? What if everybody really pushes back and they only want to pay what it would rent for? Then you've screwed yourself because you ran your numbers assuming you would be able to sell it for more than you could, right? So when we are running our insurance numbers for our buyer, we're going to use a multiplier, okay? What we're going to do is we're going to take the loan amount that our borrower would have and multiply that by anywhere from 1.15 to 1.75, okay, depending on how conservative you want to be. Now, I will encourage you to be 1.5-ish on your multiplication there, so that you can really make sure that you're fitting everything together. Because again, if you're conservative and it gets better, you just stand to make more money. If you're aggressive and it gets worse, you're losing money that you thought you were going to make, okay? So just as a quick example of that, let's say that we were selling it for $100,000, selling our house for $100,000, and we are going to then take a 10% down payment. So their loan to us is going to be $90,000. So let's look at here on the screen, and I'll kind of write these things out for you, okay? So we've got an owner financed sale, OF sale, and we are selling it for $100K with a 10% down payment. I started that wrong. 10% down and a $90K loan. Okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to take that $90,000 loan and find the insurance numbers from that. So we've got 90,000 times I'm going to use 1.5, and that is going to be our annual premium for insurance. Okay? That is going to be our annual premium. So if we actually calculate that out, we've got $90,000 times 0.015 equals our annual premium of $1,350. Okay? So in this example, that number is actually $1,350 a year, but we need to divide that by 12 to find what our monthly payment would be. So we're going to say divided by 12, that would be $112.50 on a monthly basis. All right? So when we go back to my example, I was pretty darn close by guessing at 115, so I'm just going to keep it at 115.
Yeah, because I think you can, plus or minus $2.50, you're okay.
And here's something really important to point out about insurance. If Ryan goes to get an insurance quote on 123 Main Street, he's going to get a different price than Grant is going to get at 123 Main Street, even with the same insurance agent, with the same underwriters, because insurance is based on the person just as much, not as just as much, but as well as the property. Right. Okay, so that's why we can't give like definite numbers, but we can use estimates, and that's where we use this kind of calculation. So like I said, I'm going to encourage you to use a multiplier of 1.5. So we have now found what our exit payment would be, which is $1,050. We've backed out our taxes of $150. We've backed out our insurance of $115. The next thing that we need to back out that's very important that we cannot forget about is our cash flow. Now, in my rule of thumb cash flow, I'm saying I want a minimum of $150 a month in cash flow. Minimum.
Minimum.
Now, it's okay to get more. That's what we want. But what we need to do when we're analyzing a deal is we need to look at extremes, and we need to say, can we make this deal work with us making the minimum amount that we are willing to make? And if the answer is no, then it's not a deal. If the answer is yes, and maybe you've got some room left over, then sweet, you've got a deal and you have the possibility to make even more money.
So we're 28 minutes in, and I think I'm just clicking. So I think I know where you're going with this now. And the reason I'm quiet is not because I'm being respectful. It's because I'm like, what the hell is going on over here?
Happening?
So just let me just jump in.
Yeah, please.
Maybe because if other people have the same thoughts.
Yeah, I would love
Basically what we're doing right now is we're still in the deal analysis phase of, okay, I'm going head to head with Daniel. I'm going head to head with Travion. I'm going head with McDougal and Jawad. What are all they offering? Okay, how do I beat all of those people? And right now, the reason you're saying 150 minimum is that's the minimum that you need to have a deal, and that play number is how the ability to negotiate.
Right.
So if you can get a deal where you're making a gajillion dollars cash flow, great.
Right.
But if you're making 150, well, you got a deal and nobody else got the deal.
Exactly.
Is that basically where we're going with this?
Totally.
Okay.
So what we're finding out right now.
I know. Everybody else was like, well, no shit, Ryan, but
Well, I appreciate you pulling those things out because I do have a tendency to move, right? So, and similarly, please, if you guys have questions and you're not following, dude, just all it takes is a comment that says not following. If you want to throw a comment out that says not following, we will start like breaking it out, right? Or what do you want to say?
I don't know, because not following could be like, I hate this show,
well,
not
I guess that's
following.
True. Say, I don't understand, or can you explain?
Yeah,
How about
go
can you
deeper.
explain? Go deeper. Go deeper. That's a good one. We're gonna ask you guys to tell us to go deeper if you don't understand something that's going on. Are you 6? Okay, so yeah, please, I want to make sure that you guys understand that. That is the calling of Propelio.com and CreativeCashFlow.com. It is very important to us that we're putting real, actionable information, meat in front of you guys. And if you're not getting that out of it, we're not doing our job. So help us with that.
Yeah.
Okay, so this again, we are at the deal analysis stage. We are talking to our seller, and we are trying to figure out how can I give an offer that is better than everybody else's.
One thing I don't see in that though is the actual principal payment.
Well, that's what we're getting. That's part of our play.
Okay, got it.
So what we're left with, because where I'm going with this is that I don't care where your debt goes. This is where you start to get creative. And let me further explain that, because we're about to transition into part 2 of our lesson here, which is the second liens and the private lenders and all that kind of stuff. I do not care if you owe your money to Wells Fargo, to your aunt, to some Joe that you met at an REI club who has an IRA, or to the seller, or any mixture of the above. Your debt to acquire this property can come from anywhere, and it's our job as the wise investor to understand that we can mix and match those things to give our seller a better offer than anybody else. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So now if we look at this, calculation that we've got here, we've got 1050 minus 150 for taxes, minus 115 for insurance, minus 150 for cash flow. So I'm going to do 1050
something 35, 735?
Minus 150 for taxes, minus 115 for insurance, and minus 150 for cash flow, and we are left with 635.
That was close.
You were close. So 635 is our magic number that we need to fit all of our debt into. 635 a month is our play. Okay, so looking back here, when we look at our what's the word I'm looking for? At formula. Mm-hmm. We've got rent minus taxes minus insurance minus cash flow equals play. That play means debt. The reason why I say play is that this is our money to play with.
Right.
This is our money to rearrange in a way that is going to give us this deal. All right? So now we know that on this particular deal, no matter what the amount is that I buy this house for, mm-hmm. I can pay $635 a month in debt somehow.
Right.
So the first example I'm going to give to purely just think about the principles of what we're talking about in financing is going to be that we're buying a house from somebody who owns the house free and clear. Okay? So we're buying this house from somebody who owns it free and clear, which means that we have $635 a month to pay them their money. Okay?
Like a sub 2. You said pay them their money. Are you talking about the seller or the bank?
The seller. The seller, because we're saying that the seller owns this house with no debt.
Oh.
Our first example is going to be a free and clear property.
Got
okay.
It. My bad.
So
Clearly, I don't listen.
So I'm going to put the example of free and clear, and we're going to use the same purchase numbers all the way around, but we're going to have different like debt scenarios. Okay. So this first debt scenario is that it's a free and clear property. Now our seller needs $85,000 for the purchase price.
Yes, Carlos. At this point, Grant is we're in the deal analysis phase of this, trying to make sure he can be competitive to buy it, and then we'll worry about disposition later. But he's analyzing it from the mentality of what can he sell it at and what can he bring in. He's looking at both.
Have y'all heard the abbreviation MAO, maximum allowable offer? This is how we arrive at our maximum allowable offer. Because I can say all day, yeah, you can pay full price for houses. But if you don't know what that means, and you just go out and start paying full price for houses, you might lose money. We can totally pay full price for houses, but we need to do it in a wise way. Now, the cool thing here is, and let's kind of step back to take that question on for a minute. When we buy with cash, how do we buy? We buy at a discount, right? Now, this is again recapping some of the other episodes that we've done, and again, I like what we're doing today because we're putting a nice bow on everything else. We're tying it all together. What we talked about in the past is we buy cash, we buy at a discount. We want to buy at what? if we're buying it cash? Like, what kind of LTV are we looking for?
75% minus repairs.
Looking for 75% minus repairs, but our total basis is that 75% number. And why are we buying at that 75% number?
Well, there's a lot of factors. Is if you're doing 75%, you most likely are using debt. So therefore, if you're using debt, you're throwing, I don't know, let's just say, at 75%, you're looking to make 10 to 12% profit on the deal.
Right.
So therefore, 10 to 12%, we'll just say 12% minus 25%, you're looking at 13% is going to fees, agents, realtors, you know, I don't think you throw holding costs in there, but you throw in all
Well,
the...
I mean, you would ultimately.
Yeah,
I mean, ultimately because you're buying at 75%. And
Yeah,
when
yeah.
you buy at 75%, by the way, the only two numbers that we're factoring in there is acquisition cost, what are you paying your seller, and what are you paying for rehab.
Right. Yeah, so therefore, if for 75% or minus repairs, 13%, you're mentally just saying, okay, that's going to my realtors, it's going to my insurance, it's going to my holding costs, that's going to my debt servicing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So 75% or minus repairs, you're buying there so you can make 10 to 12% profit. Is that the correct answer?
Yeah, it is. And what is our ideal worst case scenario?
Break even.
Break even. So when we buy at 75%, we are buying at 75% because we have done a risk assessment and said, look, I'm putting up, and I always use $100,000 houses, even though I know $100,000 houses are harder to find. But
non-existent in DFW.
but they are nice for percentages, right? So I'm buying a $100,000 house at 75 cents. That means that I'm going to put $75,000 of cash on the line. $75,000. It may not be my cash. It may be a debt cash, but it's cash that's being physically given out from one party to another party. And we have to protect that cash. We have to protect the fact that, hey, in our worst case scenario, we should break even. Everything goes wrong, we should break even. So we've got to pay fees, we've got to pay all this kind of stuff, but if you buy at 75%, that allows you to knock a wall down and find some termite damage and have to fix that wall. That allows you to say, oh crap, I got my days on market wrong. I actually had to hold it for 3 more months than I thought I was going to have to hold it, and still make money, okay? That is why you have to buy at that discount. What I'm here talking about today is, look, you don't have to buy at that discount if you can get creative enough about things. If you can get in at an 85% number and still make money, sweet. This is how you beat all the other wonderful buyers out there. This is how you beat the people who are phenomenal buyers, whether it's Bryce or Jawad or me or Daniel or whoever. This is, you know, and now granted, everybody I just named is going to be able to do this kind of stuff, but what I'm saying
They're all going to kick your ass.
But what I'm saying is there's a lot of people who are wholesalers, fix and flippers,
a lot.
and they are making offers in their box. And if you can come out outside of that box and make an offer that's more appealing to your seller and make money on it, I have a model that I can make a 24 to 26% return buying houses at 83 cents on the dollar, and I make that money within a year to 18 months.
Yeah, and then 2 quick points. And if you ever see me and I look like I'm the big old oof that's dumb, well, 1, it's most likely acting. But 2, I'm one of those guys that had the blinders on for so long. So a lot of times there is like, oh shit, wow, that makes sense. But most of it's acting. But secondly, you know, don't try to get too rah-rah here, but I'm going to allow me one quick rah-rah moment. But that's why you always hear the expression, going back to that worst case scenario, you're trying to break even. That's why I always hear the expression of, instead of paying $30,000, $50,000 to a guru, maybe try just buying a house, and the amount of money you're going to lose, if say you break even, well, you learn so much. That being said, I'm not saying don't use mentors.
Right.
I'm saying don't go through the traveling for those guys.
Yeah.
If you heard an ad on the radio, that's a clear sign. Maybe you shouldn't go to them.
Never pay $30,000 for a mentor. Now, $20,000 for a mentor, that's totally reasonable.
No, but I'm just saying, my point being is like, you can use that opportunity to buy a house and hopefully break even, and you can learn a lot.
Right.
That's my rah-rah, sorry.
So let's hop back in here. We've got our free and clear example that we're going to look at, okay? So in our free and clear example, we're going to say that our seller is requiring an $85,000 purchase price. And we're going to act like, you know, there's no repairs and that kind of stuff, because again, I'm trying to simplify this down to make it the most reasonable explanation for everybody.
And 85 is 85%.
And in this scenario, it's an 85% purchase price of a $100,000 ARV. ARV stands for?
After repair value.
After repair value. Once we buy it and fix it up, it's going to be worth $100,000. Okay, so in this free and clear example, we know that our seller will not sell it to us unless we give them $85,000. Now, all of the blinder guys are done. Cash guys can't offer more than like really 80 to 82% and make it make any sense. This is a trash deal to them. This is where we're going to pay too much for the house. Okay? So we're going to come in and we're going to look at this example and we're going to say, okay, well, if I go back to my calculations, I know that I have $635 a month to play with. And I need to pay this guy $85,000 somehow.
Right.
So what I'm going to point out to us is, and this is one of the ways that we do deal analysis, is I'm going to call this our knowns and unknowns, okay? Knowns and maybe I'll just divide this. I'll divide this into one line. And unknowns.
And yes, that really is his handwriting.
It's so bad, I'm sorry. Now we have a couple of knowns, okay? One of our knowns is that we have to pay an $85,000 purchase. One of our knowns, that's such a bad A. I'm bad A. One of our knowns is that we have $635 a month to pay that purchase with. What we don't know is we don't know how long. We don't know how much interest. Well, maybe I shouldn't put percent there. I'll actually put interest. Okay? And so we need to use our knowns to find our unknowns. And this is how we're going to analyze this deal. So we've talked to our seller. They need a $85,000 purchase price, and we're going to get it to them. And we're going to make a bunch of money with it in the meantime. So let's start plugging this stuff up into our calculator. Now, I use the 10B2 calculator. It's 10BII. You can see the logo kind of small up there in the top. It's like a red. Well, let me see if it's if you can see it a little bit better. See it down in that bottom left-hand corner, that 10BII? That's what it's going to look like in your app store. I really like this one. It's $6. It's going to do good for you. So we know that we have $635 a month. Now, in a calculator, the way that this works is we only care what that top row says. See that top row from N, I/YR, PV, PMT, and FV? That is all we care about. So let me just point out to you that in that we have a top row, and it says N, it says I/YR, it says PV, it says PMT, and it says FV. Now, N stands for number of payments. Number of payments. This is not how many years is the loan for. This is how many number of payments are there. So on a 30-year loan, you have 360 payments. I/YR is pretty self-explanatory. It's interest per year. PV is we're going to call it principal value. It really stands for present value in the financial calculator world, but for us, for our purposes, principal value is much more easy to understand, so I'm usually going to say principal value. Payment, I think you can understand, is the PMT, and FV is final value. Okay? Now, I guess I'll go ahead and put in here payment. Final value is going to be real easy for us because final value is always going to be 0. Always going to be 0. So, when we're finding a calculation, that one is always taken care of for us. The way that this calculator works is that we need to know 4 of these items, and it will solve the 5th one for us. Okay? So we need to know 4 of these items, and it will solve that 5th one for us. Well, now FV is already taken care of, so we really only need to know 3 items, and it'll solve that 4th one for us, right?
Which one? Oh, principal value?
Well, so FV is always 0, so that knocks one of those out.
So you just need to find 3. Yeah.
Right. The reason why FV is always 0 is that we're doing what's called a fully amortized loan. What FV means in the financial calculator world is once all the payments have been made, how much is still going to be owed on this property or on this loan? Well, in our case, once all the payments are made, we have paid the property off, therefore it's 0. So let's hop back over and let's use our knowns and our unknowns. So let's readdress that. Our knowns now are we have an $85,000 purchase and we've got $635 a month. So what do you think, what part of the calculator do you think that $85,000 purchase might go into?
The
Do you have a guess?
Principal value?
The principal value, good guess. So we're going to do that. We are going to...
That was acting.
So we're going to put in 85,000. We're going to type that into our calculator first, and then we're going to hit PV. See how that populated that for us and it put it up into that field?
Yeah.
Now PV is $85,000. What's our other known? Our other known
Payment.
is our payment, right?
635.
635. So I think we can all guess where that's going to go. We're going to type in 635. Now here's the trick. The payment is always negative. I want you to repeat that after me. The payment is...
Always negative.
What is the payment?
Always negative.
How often?
Always.
Always. The payment is always negative. If you're finding something weird in your calculator, it's probably because your payment is not negative. So you need to reapproach that. So the way to do that is above this blue button, there's a plus minus. We're going to type in 635. Then we're going to hit that, and it makes it negative.
And then push PMT.
Then we're going to hit PMT. And that populates that field for us. So now, if we start from our right to left, we've got FV is a known of 0, PMT is a known of 635, PV is a known of 850 or 85,000, and that is saying we're going to pay him $85,000 at 635 a month. Now we need to figure out how many months can we pay that to him, and at what interest rate are we going to offer.
And this is where I can just imagine it's going to be like there's going to be several options there because the whole point of doing this is so you can negotiate and get the house when nobody else can get the house.
Totally.
So whether you're doing a 5-year in a balloon or you're doing a 10-year, a 20-year, a 30-year, and this is, and again, are you doing owner finance from the seller, or are you using private capital?
Right.
Are you
Right.
some just
But don't get too intimidated by it, right? Because that's what we're training today. So you guys can watch this video again and again to learn the thought processes that are going behind this. I'm going to hit some high notes. I'm going to say, hey, this is what you can do kind of for a free and clear. This is what you can do if they owe money on the property. And this is what you can do. Well, I'll probably just do those two. Because those are going to be the most prevalent that you'll run into. But we're going to hit some of the, again, the high notes here. But exactly what Ryan just said, this is where you get to get creative. You can create all kinds of different terms with the guy. What I want you guys to do is I want you guys to go watch the hairy arm principle video, because that is going to explain how you can turn in this type of loan to a 0% interest loan. So go watch the hairy arm principle after you get done with this one, and that'll further explain this section of our negotiation process.
And real quick, it's a good time to break for 2 seconds. Just say, hey, thank you so much for watching. I know we've got, Kyle, Robert, Tanya, Lara, your thingies rushed up. Carlos, Derek, Miranda, Cody, everybody's watching. Thank you so much for tuning in. We do this Monday, Wednesday, Fridays, every Wednesday with Grant. So if this is your first time watching, thank you so much. Every 11 a.m., every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 11 a.m. CST, Central Standard Time for all you non-CST acronymers. Also, if you drop in comments at the end of this video, we're actually going to do a book giveaway. So to be entered into that, all you got to do is drop a comment. Give us some fire emojis, some thumbs up, give us some likes, give us some shares, give us some loves, all the above. If you've never checked out Propelio.com and you're like, oh, Propelio, they do those videos. Yes, but we also, our actual business is we have Propelio.com, which is an investor-friendly service for you guys that gives you access to MLS comps because it's a broker's website. Also gives you access to off-market lead lists, and it also gives you access to have an investor, pre-built investor website. So if you've never checked out Propelio.com, 7-day free trial, give it a try. CreativeCashFlow.
Yeah, Creative Cash Flow. I teach all this stuff really extensively in my online academy, and then I also do personal mentoring as well if you want some hand-holding.
All-around great guy.
All-around great guy.
Anyway, back to it.
Okay, so again, watch the hairy arm principle, and we can link to that. I saw somebody asking for a link. We can link to that video for you as well. But we know we need to pay him $85,000 at $635 a month. So what I'm going to do is when I know that when I sell this property, I'm going to sell it at 9.5% interest rate to my buyer, right? So I can basically charge any kind of, or pay any kind of interest rate to my seller. I know from history and experience, I can typically just offer them 4.5% interest and they're happy because they've never thought about interest before. So that's the example I'm going to use right here.
Because most people don't understand
the power
the power of interest rates and how literally, like if you're paying 4% or you're paying 6%, how much money 2% really
Oh,
is
yeah,
over
it's
the
big.
course of 10, 20, 30
Actually,
years.
I'll give that example right now. So we're going to put in 4.5% into interest because, again, historically, that's what I'm going to start my offer at is 4.5%. And then, look, if we go from right to left, we now have what? We've got 4 items. We need to solve for that 5th. If we hit that button, that means that we can get this seller paid off in 186 months. If we divide that by 12, that lets us know that it's just a little bit over 15 years. 15 and a half years, we can get this seller paid their $85,000, right? So I'm just going to write that example down because that's a pretty good good
Yeah, because
deal.
most people think mortgages, they think in terms of 30 years.
Right. So if we go back to our free and clear offer, and again, I'm just going to take one example of each of these. I'm not going to dive real deep into all the different options that we can do. I'm just going to show you one example. Watch the other videos, and you'll start to understand how you can get creative about this. But we're putting a bow on everything
15
here.
years.
So we're going to do basically, okay, 15.5 years at $635 a month. And that means that for the next 15 years, we're going to make $150 a month. And then after that first 15 years is done and we've paid him off, we're now going to be making $785 a month in cash flow.
For the next
That's
15.
free and clear for the next following 15 years. So for those of you who didn't quite catch what just happened, we bought a house at 85 cents on the dollar. And we are going to pay them, let's look at the power of interest here, we are going to pay them total $118,000 basically for that house. You see where it says total paid at the top? With interest and everything included, that 4.5% that we're paying our seller means that we're going to pay them $118,000. Okay? Now let's take a real quick gander at our sale side, just so that you guys see exactly why I'm saying, hey guys, we can pay 85% for this house and still make a bunch of money. Our sale, we are going to, oh, did I already have a thing for our sale? I don't think we did. Yeah, owner finance sale. Our sale, remember, we sold at $100,000 at 10% down, which means that we're getting 10 grand up front, right? So we're going to make a $10,000 profit up front, plus whatever money we're making from this $90,000 loan that's getting paid out at 30 years at 9.5%. You follow me? So what is that? If we do a $90,000 loan, or actually, before I do this, let me write that number down.
We're now on the disposition side if you're not following.
Yes. So we've got on this free and clear example, we paid him for 15 and a half years at $635 a month, which means that ultimately we're paying him, I'm going to round up to $119,000 total. Okay? Now, if we go back
Can you write to seller
to seller,
just to make it easier for everyone?
yeah.
And by everyone, I mean me.
Total over 15 years, we will have paid him $119,000 for that free and clear property. Now, if we compare that to the money that we're going to make on this sale to see ultimately what our total profit on this is going to be, we gave a $90,000 mortgage to our buyer. We gave it to them at 9.5% interest. We gave it to them on a 30-year mortgage, which means that their payment to us was $756 a month, which means that we're making $150 a month in cash flow. But ultimately, they are paying us $272,000.
Which is more.
Which is more. So if we go to our owner financed example, we're getting $10,000 plus $272, which means that in total, we're making $282,000
minus the 119 or
minus what we paid to our seller of 119. So 282, oops, what am I doing here?
new toy.
272 or 282 minus 118. We made a total profit on this deal at buying at 85 cents on the dollar. We made a total profit of, what was that, $164,000 net profit on a deal that we bought at 85 cents on the dollar.
And you also put nothing into it.
And we put nothing of our own money into it.
No light bulbs, no toilets. Nothing.
Right. So that's the beauty of what's going on here. Now, that in and of itself is gold. That's awesome. And then I'm going to do one more example here that shows, but what if this seller does not own it free and clear? And I need to find a way to negotiate giving them $85,000, which is too much, but still not having to come out of pocket anything.
But, okay, yeah, sorry.
You good?
Yeah.
So that's what we're going to do. Now we've got another example here of...
Oh, I know what I was going to say.
Yeah.
Sorry. When we're negotiating that, would you go in and said, I know you're asking for 85, but how about I pay you 119 instead? Could you throw something out there like that?
You could. See if that works for you. The way that I do that, if you watch the Hairy Arm Principle, you'll hear my exact pitch of how I'm going to pitch that. I'll say, look, $85,000 is too much for anybody else to pay, right? You want to knock that out right away because we want to knock out our other competitors. We don't want them to, so you try to, it's too much. No investor is going to be able to pay that to you. However, I'm really good at what I do. And so if you're willing to take your equity in installments, I'll give you that $85,000, which is too much. I'll give it to you, and I'll pay you interest on top of that. And then go into that hairy arm pitch that I give you on the other video. And ultimately what you're going to say is like, I'll give you that $85,000, and I'm going to give you interest, which means that ultimately I'm giving you $118,000. You're not selling this for 85, you're getting 118 from it, right? That's where you throw that part of it in.
Got it.
But you could lead with that if you want. If it works for you, find what works for you. So now we're going to look at a sub 2 example plus second lien. So a sub 2 plus second, right? Stop laughing at my handwriting.
No, I'm laughing at the fact that we're like almost an hour in and we're just now getting to the title of the video.
It's all part of the deal, man. This is how you learn.
I know.
We got to set things up, man.
No, I'm not. No, where's the meat?
Gosh, just punch you. Okay, so let's pretend that instead of this guy owning the house free and clear, he still wants $85,000, and he will not sell it to us for less than $85,000. But in this example, he owes $50,000 to, let's say, Bank of America, and
35.
we're left over with $35,000 that we need to come up with. Okay. Now, in one of my other videos a few weeks ago, we talk about how can we use second lien money with lenders to hit that $35,000. Now I'm going to talk about how can we get $35,000 from our seller to do that so we don't even have to have private money. I got a lot of loans out this way.
So real quick, if you're still with us, thank you so much. Now's when you really need to start paying attention, because this is some of those creative things that 92% of investors don't really jump into because it takes a bit of work.
Right.
So pay attention.
And I want to encourage.
Nuggets
I want to encourage you guys too. Is like, I get that we're spending an hour on this right now, and you're like hell, I'm going to do this in front of my seller. Everything that we've done right here, I can do while negotiating on the phone without breaking the conversation. And I'm going to write down about 4 numbers on my pad of paper, and I'm going to use my calculator, and within a span of about 2 to 3 minutes maximum, I will have run everything that we're talking today.
Right.
So I understand that we're like diving deep and it's taking us an hour to get through all of this, but I want you guys to know that once you practice this kind of stuff, literally it takes me maybe 2 minutes, and I don't even have to break my conversation.
And the reason I wanted to preface what we're getting into, because most people when they think sub 2, and again, I hate to say just most people, but I would say a majority of people when they think sub 2, they immediately think, oh, well, we're going to give them $50,000 and we're going to get the house. We're going to sub 2 the 50, and they don't really realize that yes, sub 2 also includes taking over the payments on the 50, but also having some way to come up with that 35, whether that be through cash or through what we're about to talk about. So sub 2 can be more than just taking over the payments. I get that's not the wet language, but whatever. It could be more. It'd be taking over the payments and giving them more carrots.
I mean, sub 2 specifically refers to the part that you're actually taking over on those payments, but we're not going to say that to sellers. We're going to say making payments on their behalf. But we're going to employ that. Like I always talk about, hey, how many times have I told you got to have a bat belt? This second lien tool is another tool in your bat belt.
Cool.
So we need to get them $35,000 somehow. So I'm going to say that this $50K that's owed to Bank of America, we're gonna pull that down here, and we're gonna say it's $50,000, and it's at 4.25%, which is very typical, and it's got 22 years left on it. Okay, that's what we're gonna say that debt is at. So if I run those numbers, if I say $50,000 is the debt, and it's at 4.25%, and it's 22 years left on the loan. That means that our payment to Bank of America is $291.85. So I'm just going to round that up to $292. I'm going to make this red. It's money out. So I'm going to say it's $292 out. So now let's look at another knowns and unknowns scenario. We've got, well, I'm actually just going to go back to my other board and erase that. We've got different knowns now, don't we? Now we've got a known that we owe Bank of America 50K. I'm sorry. Yeah, well, yeah. We've got a known that we owe 50 grand to Bank of America, and I'm just going to skip forward. That's a great @ sign. I'm going to skip forward, and what was it, 292? We owe that at 292 a month. We know that we have total money to play with, or let me step before that. We know that we need to get our seller $35,000 somehow. And we know that the way that we're going to do that is through our monthly cash flow that we had to give them of, what was it, $635? Yeah, yes. $635 a month. So these are our knowns now. But guess what? We still have the same unknowns, but now those unknowns apply to this second lien. Now these unknowns of how long and how much interest, whereas before we were doing it for the full 635, now we're just doing it for that second lien. Now we're going to figure out how do we get that seller their $35,000 without me having to pay them money for it. And this is something that I can even reference that I know from a fact from conversations that you and I have had, and I know from a fact from conversations of people that I've trained, and even my business partner for a long time, Ronnie Walker, brilliant dude, making tons of money right now. But even he, like when we got started, he had it in his mind sub 2. He's like, okay, so we're gonna take over the sub 2, and then we're gonna pay them cash to get them out of the property. And I know you've said this several times. Yeah, man, I'll pay him $15,000. I'll take over the loan. Right. No, I don't want you to pay any money. I want you to leverage this all out in debt, so you're never having to pay cash out. My first 50, 60 properties I ever bought, literally no money came out of my back pocket, and it's because we were leveraging debt. We were leveraging liens with our seller, which, by the way, are non-recourse, non-commercial, completely unlimited funding that you have available to you if you can get your seller to hold that note, right? You were about to say something. Did we cover it?
Well, I was just going to skip ahead because
Okay.
I'm looking at the numbers going, oh, okay, so what I would need to do is I need to take that 635 and then subtract out 292.
Absolutely.
And whatever that number is, that's the number I need to come up with for the 35.
So when we look at our...
Because I'm smart.
So remember how I said at the beginning, if you look at our formula, I don't care where your debt is going? I said that very specifically for this reason. Is because, look, we arrive at our play, but that play may include several different plays, right? In this case, our play comes down to bank debt for BOA, and then it's going to be our second lien. Both of those fit into this number, which if you look at it, that number is 635. So now we start looking at our knowns. One of our knowns is that we had debt to the bank of $292. So we're going to start backing stuff out again to arrive at what we need to play with. This is backing into the deal, right? So we're going to back out the 292, and what we're left with is our second lien money on a monthly basis. So what is 635 minus 292? 635 minus 292 is $343. So now we know that our second lien, if we go to our knowns and unknowns, that second lien of $35,000, oops, sorry, I went to the wrong one. That second lien of $35,000, we now have a new known that we need to pay that to them with, do you remember what that number was?
334?
Oops.
274?
Oh, it was in the calculator, right? 343.
My dyslexia kicked in.
So we have $343 to pay them this second lien, so I'm going to add at $343. Everybody follow?
And that's what you have to play with.
That's what we have to play with. This is our offer to our seller. This is our offer to our seller. We're going to say, look, seller, I will buy your house for way too much. I will buy your house for $85,000. By the way, this model works all the way up to 100%. You can buy houses at 95% and still have this model work. I'm just using 85 cents because it's just over the cap that you cash buyers are going to be able to spend. So I will give you the $85,000. I will take over on your loan to Bank of America. I will continue to make those payments on your behalf.
Right.
And then I will pay you I will pay you the difference, your equity,
The 343.
which is $35,000. I will pay you that $35,000. I will pay that to you at $343 a month, a negative $343 a month. And I will even give you interest on that because I know that you don't know me from Adam. So I'll pay you 4.5% interest on that, which means that I will get you $343 a month every month for the next 128 months, which basically is just over 10 years. And ultimately, I'm not just paying you $35,000. You're actually getting another $9,000 out of me purely in interest. So really, I'm giving you $44,000 on top of the $50,000 that I'm paying. So really, I'm paying $94,000 for this property.
Right.
No one else can offer you that, right? And again, watch the hairy arm principle, and I'll train you how you can take that pitch that I just gave you and turn it into a 0% loan. So with this scenario, we have just gotten you a house at 85 cents on the dollar that you're going to cash flow $150 a month on, and ultimately what you're going to make in either one of these scenarios is a net profit of $164,000. You're cash flowing $150 a month for the first, in this case, 10 or 15 years. Then your cash flow goes up and up and up. And like Ryan mentioned earlier, if you go and you buy a house a month like this, then in 10 years, all of a sudden you start having all your underlying debt drop off,
Right.
and you're sitting on the beach, and all of a sudden your cash flow every month goes from $10,000 a month to $13,000 a month. And then the next month you get $15,000 a month. And then the next month you get $20,000 a month because all this debt is dropping off as time goes forward.
So before I lay you up on another one, we're getting closer to the end. So please, any questions that you've had on this, I know this one has been very numbers heavy and maybe kind of brain melting, but that's what we want to do. We want to give you the real stuff, not just the rah-rah. So drop in your comments, drop in the love, any questions, drop them in. We'll get them in a second. Also, we will be doing that book giveaway. Back to you. Do you want a layup to show people how more creative they can get with this?
Okay, sure.
Okay, so in that scenario where they owe 50, they want 35, they're like, that sounds like a good idea, but I want $10,000 down.
Okay. All right, let's take it. Let's
See
do
where I'm going
it.
with that?
Let's get it, man.
Because again, some people might be thinking, oh, second, oh, wow, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
But you still don't want to spend money.
Right.
So what's after 1 is 2. What's after 2?
So
You see where I'm going?
Yeah, so exactly. So in that example, and this is where things start getting creative, because when you have made either one of these offers, we did one free and clear, we did one sub 2 second. There's so many that's negotiating past that.
Right.
You've offered them 4.5%, but they may not want, as a quick example, just to set us up for where we're going, they may not want to give it to you for 10 years. They may have a problem with that 10-year mark. And so this is where that hairy arm principle comes in, and you can say, okay, cool, well, if you need it paid off more quickly, I can do that, but that doesn't come with any interest. If I don't give you interest, I'll get you paid off in 100 months, which is 8.5 years. And if that's cool for them, awesome. Now you've got a loan at 0%, $35,000 at 0% for 8.5 years, which means that after 8.5 years, your cash flow will go up by that amount. Your cash flow stops being 150 because you will have paid off this 35 grand. Your cash flow now becomes 490 because you add that 350 or that 343 that you were paying to your seller to your own cash flow. That's super sweet. But then they say 8 years is still too much, or they say I have to have some money down.
Right.
Say they want $10,000 down. Well, if you remember our example of our sale, when we go to our owner financed sale, what did we do? We sold it for 100 grand with 10% down, which meant that we got $10,000 from our buyer, right? So maybe we need to apply that $10,000 down payment to our acquisition. Maybe we're going to say, okay, I'll give you 10% or I'll give you $10,000 down, but I don't want to do that out of my back pocket. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go under a 60-day option period and a 60-day close on our contract, which, by the way, I do all the time. We're going to do a 60-day close, 60-day option period. when I find a buyer who is willing to pay, because you want way too much from me, and I'll make it work, but I need time to make that work. So we'll do 60-day close, 60-day option. During that period of time, I have the right contractually to go market this property to find somebody to buy it from me. When I find somebody to buy it from me, then I will let you know and we will go to closing. And that could happen next week because, guys, on the contract it says on or before 60 days from now. So if I find a buyer next week, we'll go to closing next week. Totally fine. And I'll give you your $10,000 down. Now what that means is that we are going to be using the $10,000 that comes in from our buyer and just throwing that straight over to our seller. Again, no money out of our pocket. We're leveraging the whole deal and getting it paid for with our buyer's funds. So then we take our total income and knock down $10,000 from it. We're still making a total income of $150,000+, which by the way is more, but I don't want to, in this example, but I don't want to spend the time on going through all those specific examples. And so now, if we go to our calculator, because we're buying it with $35,000 and then we are giving them 10 of that. Mm-hmm. So our loan is $25,000. We're still going to pay them $343 a month. But that now means that we're paying them off in 72 months or 6 years.
Right.
So we have knocked that down even further.
But what if I really like having $10,000 in my pocket?
So if you really, so let's take it one step further. And guys, this is just a wonderful example of how there are a million ways to skin a cat.
And just trying to break everybody's brain further.
Because why not? This is one of the meatier examples or meatier classes that we've had. Let's keep it going, right? I want you guys to have some real value here. Okay, so let's get creative about it. What if they want $10,000 up front and I want to keep my $10,000 down payment? Mm-hmm. So in that example, what we could do is we could start looking. Remember when I said at the beginning, and I keep going back to this, I don't care where this debt comes from. I don't care where this play is. Here's another example. We are going to owe Bank of America $50, right? Mm-hmm. We are going to owe our seller $25. Okay, so I'm going to erase this $343. I'm going to make that note to myself of $343 over on the side.
Because you're effectively splitting up 25 and 10.
Mm-hmm. So I now know that I need my seller's loan to be $25,000 to seller. But what about Joe Schmo IRA? Mm-hmm. That only has $15,000 in their IRA account, but they really want it to be used in real estate. Just like we talked about in that episode several episodes ago about using second lien money from IRA and from private money, this is another one of those examples. We could grab that $10,000 from a private investor. It could be cash.
It could be cash.
It could be IRA. It
could be whatever.
Whatever.
It could literally be private capital in the sense that I really want to get into this business, but I don't have time, but I want to play in it. Because look at how many of those people are out there doing the multifamily. You've got your deal sponsors, and then they do the syndication. Mm-hmm. This is not the same thing, but it's similar in the sense that instead of giving $100,000 to $100 million, you can get in on a deal for $10,000.
Right. So now again, you've got a million different options.
Right.
It's going to totally depend on your private money lender, but I'm just going to throw some example numbers out.
Right.
I'm going to say that my private money lender will do $10,000 loans, but they want 10% interest to do that. Okay? Now, I know that I've got $343 a month to play with, and actually, you know what? I'm going to back up a little bit.
You don't have that anymore.
That's my total play that's left, right? I have to cover both the $25,000 loan and the $10,000 loan with that 343 number. So I'm going to say that my private money lender is willing to do a 60-month loan for me. That would be $212 that I have to pay my private capital person with that $10,000. So that might make it challenging, but mm-hmm. I know that that's, what was it, $212? Mm-hmm. $212 a month, okay, to my private capital to get that $10K paid off.
So $131.
So now we're left with $131 to pay our seller $25,000. Everybody follow us there? Mm-hmm. So what I need to go back to is our knowns and unknowns. I know now my seller has a $25,000 lien at $131 a month. So I'm going to type that in, $25,000 at $131 negative dollars a month. I'm going to go back to that 4.5% interest to try and make that enticing to them, and that means it's 335 months. Could they accept that? Maybe. Would they accept that? Probably no. But this is part of the creative. Again, you would just have to adjust all the meters to make this work. But here's the thing is that, hey, if that's too long for you, that's cool. What if we do 0% interest? That's 190 months. But I'm getting you your money.
Right, you're getting 10%. The whole point of bringing that up was not necessarily the actuality of this example, but just to point out that you can have a first, you can have a second, you can have a third.
It can go on as long as
it can go as long as, obviously, your seconds and thirds need to know the risks of that.
Right.
But it's getting creative. And when you do a sub 2 deal, yes, you can wrap it, blah, 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 but you can also still have your 2s, your 3s. So the power of this deal is the fact that you have the ability to pay more than anybody else.
Right.
And then throw in a second. But, they want a down payment. Well, go back to your calculator, go back to your notepad, and make the deal work with, say, a third.
Yeah, absolutely. So, cool, guys. That's how you pay too much money. I know, it took us an hour and 15 minutes to get through that, but it's a cool way to look at deals. It's totally, this should be blowing your mind. This should be something that you're like, oh, I see how you can make money with this, right?
So let's get some questions. So Lacey, thanks for watching. So hard to wrap my brain around some of these numbers. If you've watched the whole episode and the previous 25 episodes of this, you understand that my brain is often blown as well. Henry, but are you accounting for maintenance reserves and eventual property management as you get more properties? On this, because it's owner finance, you don't give a shit, right?
Yeah, for a large part, yes, you don't. That's one of the beauties of how this works. Now, what I'm not accounting for either in here is servicing fees, because you can charge servicing fees, and that's like $35 to $50 a month, and that can account for those overhead costs because you might need staff, as you start staffing. So, but to that point, what I want you to think about, and again, like I said, I'm putting a nice little bow on a lot of the things. I want you guys to watch all these videos, because if you go back to my Road to Retirement video, I address exactly that.
Did you do homework did you watch all your episodes? He's like doing callbacks to all these episodes. I'm like, did we do that?
I know, right? Well, I just know because I went back after I wanted to do this episode, and I was like, well, I think we've covered some stuff, and then I started seeing, I was like, okay, this is a nice little wrap-up, so I'm intentionally trying to bring up things that are wrapping everything up and tying it all together. But that is a perfect example of go to my Road to Retirement video, because again, I'm using an example here for numbers to get your thought process to start working. But if you are the type of person who's like, yeah, but Grant, I want to put staff in place, I want to have a big portfolio, I want to have an office building and all that kind of stuff, then you need to watch that Road to Retirement video, because I do teach you how to account for that.
Right.
I'm saying right here, okay, we've got $150 a month, so you're going to make this much a month. But if you're like, dude, I want to have 3 people that are making $75,000 a month, then you need to start working that into your portfolio numbers and backing everything out there. We're backing into the deal with our actual deal analysis, but you also need to back into the retirement.
Right.
You need to back into the deal with getting to the point you want to be
And the whole point of this episode and all those numbers was not necessarily to show that those numbers are real, but the fact that that's how you negotiate. That's your baseline. That's what you want. Or that's because you can do better than that. You can do no interest. You can pay less. But the whole point of everything here was to, show where your baseline is to where you can go back out from.
Hold on, our audio is out, so let's hold off while we...
What's that? Is the internet?
Yeah.
I know what it is.
Yeah.
It's too much bandwidth.
Oh, with the streaming?
Is it good now?
Good now. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Excellent.
William, thanks for watching. Love the nitty gritty. Rosa, why would a seller take payments on the 35 in payment? Well, the simple answer is if they're trying to sell their house and nobody else is paying what they want to pay, that's why they would do it.
I'm sorry, I missed the question because I was trying to read.
The question was, why would a seller take payments on a 35?
Yeah. I love that question, because the fact that you're asking that question is why I'm able to get so many contracts. It's because nobody else is making this offer. One of the big things that I have to power through to my students, one of the hardest things to train people is that don't say no for your seller. Too many of us have this we're going to decide no for our seller. Well, my seller's never going to say yes to that. And I would get all the time, again, referencing Ronnie. Ronnie's one of the biggest rock stars that's ever worked with, that I've ever worked with. And I got the absolute pleasure of training this guy from the start. And again, I think he cleared like $500,000 in cash last year. I mean, the dude is killing it out there right now. We've since split, and he's doing his own thing. But here's the thing: is that even when he was coming in, all the time he would be, I would say, okay, well, did you try a second lien with them? Oh, they wouldn't accept that. Why not? Well, because they've got this and this and this going on. Did you ask them? Well, no, but they're not going to go for that. Did you ask them? And so then when you go back and you ask them, dude, all the time we get yeses. See, here's the thing, and let me finish this up with one point here, and I want you guys to apply this. This is one of those, I want to see fire and gold off of this one. Our sellers do not think about money and real estate the way that we think about real estate and money. And that is very hard for people to get over. Haven't you seen that yourself?
Absolutely.
People cannot understand why in the world would somebody give me their property subject to and just let me start paying without any money. But guys, dude, I buy houses all the time like that. They are not you. Similarly, here's another callback, my head, heart, gut video. Part of the negotiation that you have to understand is you cannot negotiate in the way that sounds good to you, because you might be a head person and they're a heart person. And if it's a good pitch that it sounds good to you, and you're pitching a head pitch to a heart person, they're gonna think that you're a jerk. A head pitch to a heart person, you're an a-hole, okay? But it sounded really good to you, so you can't understand why they wouldn't sign that contract. Well, the flip reverse is true here. Why would they ever accept an offer like this? Because it doesn't make sense to me. Right. It doesn't matter if it makes sense to you. Does it make sense to them? A good negotiator is able to turn their own decision centers off and listen. Talk about like Elizabeth Never Ready, right? One of her big things, is that really how you say your last name?
Neverete.
Neverete. One of the things that she talks about at these Propelio events, is she going to be here next week?
She said she's coming.
Cool. And you ought to catch up with her. She's really sharp. One of the things that she's talked about at these past Propelio events is she goes on stage to talk about listening, how important it is to listen. If you can turn your decision centers off and turn off how you think about real estate and fully focus on how your seller thinks about real estate and money, that is how you get these types of offers made.
I just want to add real quick another nugget to the first thought about that, about how sellers and real estate investors look at real estate and money differently. You need to get your mind away from the dollar amount, because in our world, how many times have you walked away from a deal that was $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 worth of profit just because it wasn't worth your time to make $2,000, $3,000, $5,000? So again, in our world, $5,000, yeah, it's good money, but that's a lot of work and time, so you might walk away from that. Whereas somebody else in this world, well, not just everybody in this, $5,000 is a shit ton of money. It's a lot. So I totally understand not putting in work because of $5,000 in our world. It's not that much, but it really is. So you need to realize that, $35,000, oh, that's not that much money. It really is. $35,000, and I wish I did economics and world studies, because that's a shit ton of money. But in our world, 30 years for 35, oh, that's just so much money. Again, back to what you were saying, don't answer for the seller. Right. We need to wrap it up, so let's barrel through these. Jason Witherspoon, he's saying Grant don't look like a gangsta, but when it comes to art, he's an OG making moves. What Debbie, thanks. Rosa, great. LOC. Kendrick, what LOC? I don't understand what
LOC, line of credit.
Well, there you go.
You could use a line of credit if you got that.
What was the name of the calculator again?
10BII. It's 10B2, but it's going to be listed as 10BII, and it's red with like a sunburst coming out of the 10BII. It's on Android and iOS. It's about $6.
Jamie was asking, is it possible to pay off the $25,000 note with another note? Let's say you find a $25,000 note with a higher interest, more attractive donor that you can buy for a discount at $15,000,
right?
And you can offer it to them as a settlement. Made another $10,000 note for yourself.
Yeah. So, and that's Russian Jaime. He figured out how to change his name. I recognize the bicep in that picture. So yeah, Jaime. Basically, you're talking about note purchasing, and that's how note purchasing works. Is you find notes and you buy them at a discount to get the yield play that you want to make. So yeah, you could find second liens to sellers and offer them a settlement. What if you have $15,000 and you are willing, if their note for $25,000 makes sense for you to buy for $15,000, then it might give you the yield that you're looking for. But you got to know all the terms to that deal to go for it. Now, the other side of things is that I've done this before with a seller where I created a second lien note to them, and then like 6-7 months down the road, I just asked them, hey man, you've got 20 grand left on your note, and I'm totally cool with still paying that out, but I'll give you 10 right now if you just want cash now.
I have a quick. Is it storming outside? Maybe that's what it is. Because wasn't it storming this morning?
It was storming earlier.
So maybe that's what it is. Anyway, a lot of love, a lot of love, a lot of love. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Okay, let's do final plugs, final thoughts while I do this comment picker thingy.
Okay, cool. So we're gonna do the comment picker. Guys, again, I want you guys, if you are interested in how I teach, if you're interested in what we're doing here, CreativeCashFlow.com. I do have an online academy that you can sign up for, learn from me directly there. I got a weekly Q&A session for all of my students that we do every Monday night. And you know, personal mentoring too. I can hold hands there. Guys, don't forget that next Tuesday, this coming Tuesday, here in DFW, we're going to be doing the Propelio Meetup event, which is going to be an awesome event. I'm going to be speaking on subject to and wraparound mortgages and how all of that stuff works. Again, I'm a nitty-gritty guy. I like to get into the details because I feel like if you listen to me talk or you listen to these things and come to this, you should walk away with a new tool that you can go employ tomorrow. And that's the key to it. So we're going to be talking about that stuff on Tuesday night as well.
Excellent. And as far as watching the videos, we have a ton of videos. Somebody made the comment earlier this week. It was Logan Fulmer out of San Antonio. He was just saying, wow, I just saw this video with Will Crozier and Daniel Moore in 2017. I didn't know y'all were. Yeah, we've been doing this for several months now, for not quite a year, but since about September-ish. So there's a ton of videos out there, a ton of content. Just click on the videos on Facebook and just check it out. We do have better versions, HD versions in YouTube, but there's a ton of content out there to learn.
And yes, the full video is going to be up for watching later. These always, actually, Propelio has been kind enough to give me my own playlist on Propelio app, facebook.com/Propelio app, so you can go through the playlist and watch past episodes and then all the other episodes
Would
too.
you like to push the button? Ryan Harper. Ryan Harper. Ryan Harper. Ryan Harper. Ryan Harper.
Lacey Janka.
So, what books? What do you want to give away?
Oh gosh, I didn't even think about that.
Let's pick two. That way she can pick from one.
Yeah, I mean, always I like influence, and I mean the two I'm reading right now are the One Thing and Multipliers.
So Lacey, One Thing or Multipliers, hit me up in my DMs and we'll get that to you. Hey everybody, thank you so much for watching. Thank you for sticking around for the technical difficulties. You know, Spectrum hates us, Facebook hates us, but you know what? They're not going to hold us down.
But you don't hate us.
They're not going to hold us down. Can't hold us down.
All right, next week, 11 a.m. every Wednesday. Grant, teach me something, and then Tuesday, this coming Tuesday, where is it?
Palace Theater in Grapevine, 5 o'clock, open bar, baby.
All right, perfect. We'll see you later.
Slow-mo high five.